Welcome, YouTube friends and family, to today's edition of the Wellness Homesteader. So today we're going to do something really different, and we're going to learn together because this is the first time I've ever tried to do this. So what am I going to do? I am going to be a worm farmer. So I happened upon a channel called Hey, It's a Good Life, and I'm just going to show you here. I downloaded Start Your Worm Farm. And I watched a lot of different channels, and you can certainly do this with like big bins and drilling holes in it. But I decided I was going to order a true worm farm and see if I could make my own compost for my garden. That's why I wanted to farm worms. So I ordered the Vermitech, and if I can figure out how to link it, I will link it for you. It's a Vermihut plus worm bin. So it's easy to use. We shall see. Odorless, 100% organic fertilizer, educational, 30% household waste reduction. So last evening my worms arrived. And I'm like, oh no, I don't have their little house set up. So we are going to work on this together, and I'm going to pull everything out, and I'll just tell you ahead of time, please ignore Frankie crying, number one. The stuff that gets on the floor, because I'll vacuum when I'm done. Let me get organized and I'll bring you right back. So I'm gonna have to hold things up because this is as low as my tripod goes. Okay, so what I will say, this is a really nice worm farm. The directions are not so nice. So it took me reading the entire booklet to really wrap my head around it. So this is like take 47. And here comes Frankie. So what you have is a base, and it comes with a spigot. So as the worms produce compost, reproduce, go to the restroom, you're going to be able to extract water called worm tea. And this worm tea is like great fertilizer, so that's a good thing. On top of this base, and you can see it's slanted down to collect, is a tray, so that the water can come through. As your worm farm grows, you need more and more of these trays. So it comes with a bunch. I've put them all away, except for this one, which is where we're gonna start. And you start by lining it with cardboard. And they do, well, I've watched 14,000 YouTube videos. Try to pick cardboard that doesn't have the tape and the plastic on it, which could harm your worms. Okay, it also came with, hang on, a coconut core brick. Now I've rehydrated these. I've used them when it's like soil, and it says after 15 or 20 minutes, after maybe an hour or 15 or 20 minutes, you are going to have what looks like soil. And the one thing that can harm your worms is having the soil too wet. So you want to be able to squeeze it and have a couple drops come out. Now, did you see? Let me do that again. Maybe closer. Oh, little for the floor. Way too wet. I just could not get that coconut core to break down. But that is not the entirety of the bedding. So let me get off the floor when I put on the floor. You are going to add to this soil and paper. And yes, worms do eat paper. So it says, now that the coconut core block is completely broken down into fibers, you will want to add and mix with garden soil, moist shredded newspaper, shredded cardboard, egg cartons, crushed eggshells, and or dry leaves and brown grass. Do not use green leaves or green grass, as they may generate excess heat, which can kill your worms. And it talks about how to correct wet or dry bedding, which is pretty simple. Now, once we get this mixed up and I've got my soil and my paper, we are going to put this in the bed of the worm farm. So what I've done here, first of all, is I've shredded a bunch of paper, and instead of spraying it, I'm gonna put it in dry because I need this bedding to dry out a little bit. And it's way too wet. So I'm gonna start working that in. Ideally, you would do this outside, Oh my word. Guys, it has stormed here. Ugh. Like crazy. We had a pop up 2 lines of showers, and that really changed up how things are going around here. And then it's supposed to be sunny all day, so I don't know. It's just too wet to work outside, and I started this when it was dark. Today is actually the auction, so I want to get a lot of stuff done. I'm going to try using this paper first to soak up the excess moisture, and I can tell you it's working really well. And then I will add the soil. My soil is slightly damp, but not, it's probably about perfect. I can tell you this is soaking up a lot of the water, so that's good. You just don't want your bedding to be too wet. I guess worms like moist but not too wet. And what I'm trying to do is get that wet coconut core into the newspaper so the newspaper can absorb the water, and it does seem to be working pretty well. Shred it up here. When you're shredding paper, guys, I just used an old work manual that I had that's completely out of date, and you don't want to use a bunch of colored ink. You want to be careful about that. You could shred some junk mail. Just be sure, and you know, brand new worm farmer here. Why am I giving advice? Well, I've done a lot of reading and research. I would not want to put, like, you know how you'll get window envelopes in your junk mail? I would take that plastic off if you're gonna shred the envelope. And I also think you should concentrate on using black ink, black and white paper, not paper that is all colored or heavy. They will eat cardboard, so you can do cardboard, but I would, yeah, I would more go with like printer type paper. Oh. Okay, I need to take a break here because my mom is calling. I will be right back with you. So I finally did have our mix. I threw a couple pieces of paper on top. I'll mix in just to the right consistency. So what the directions say is, take one of the trays, there are 5 trays in your kit, and line the bottom with a piece of cardboard or 4 to 5 pieces of dry newspaper. Transfer and spread the bedding mixture prepared above to the tray. Place the tray on top of the white worm saver tray, which is right there. This is the first tray. So let's get to this point. And now when I squeeze, I can get a tiny bit of water out. So I'm thinking it might be just a touch wet. So I'm going to wring this out each time so that it is the proper consistency. And y'all, this is the most work part of it. I mean, you still have to feed your worms, etc., and, you know, babysit them a little bit, especially the first week or so. But, you know, things that are worth it take time. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm just wringing this out into one corner of the bucket. Wow, that's a lot of bedding, for sure. But I'm sure, you know, your worms being shipped are pretty stressed. And they're dehydrated and they're hungry, so I want to give them like a really good base. And I also want to try not to violate any of the rules so that I end up with a good worm farm. And it doesn't really say how much to put in, but it's certainly not full to the top because we will be adding trays. So I'm gonna call this pretty good. Yeah. All right. You know, maybe one more in the middle. I definitely got it too wet. Okay, let me go wash my hands, and I will bring you back to talk about how you feed the worms and what the next step is. One of the nice things that did come with the worm farm is this giant magnet that's your worm composting diet. So what do they eat? Vegetables, fruit, coffee ground and tea leaves, eggshells, dried leaves and grasses, cardboard and paper. Limit rice, citrus food, bread, tomatoes, cakes, potatoes. Avoid meat, eggs, fishes, dairy products, bones, and pet waste. So I thought that was really easy. So we will set this aside, and I have prepared the worms' dinner plate. So I have eggshells, I have coffee grounds, and I have some fresh zucchini, which is a yellow squash, and it says, put a handful of food at a corner of the bedding and cover the food with a thin layer of bedding. So I'm going to put a handful, try to encompass all of this so they have a little bit of everything. And you don't want to overfeed your worms, or it can cause the food to rot and then smell. So this will be a snack for them in a few days. So we've done this piece. Now we are ready to add our worms. So I am going to switch a little bit back and forth between what the worm farm says. So this is Uncle Jim's worm farm, and I can tell you, look, there's worms trying to escape. Can you see? Oh gosh, I'm holding it too high. There you go. There's a worm hanging out. So I'm going to open them up, and they're in like a medium, shall we say, and I'm just going to dump them in. Oh yeah, look at all those red wigglers. That's the kind of worms that I have. Let's make sure we got all the little boys and girls out. So the next thing we want to do, they don't like light, so they're going to be like trying to get away from the light. I don't have any newspaper, guys, but it says take a couple layers of newspaper and you want to put over this. So I'm going to gently distribute them so they're not so concentrated. Hi guys, welcome to the fam. So I'm just taking some more of that nursing manual that I wrote many years ago. Oops, you get back in there. You stay in, yes. And I'm going to spray them really well with water. This is how it says to do it. Cover them. Okay, you guys go night-night. Go have snacks or whatever you're supposed to do. I'm always amazed when directions say take newspaper. I mean, who uses newspaper nowadays, or who reads a newspaper, right? You know, everything's online. Okay, so we have our worms all covered up. Now the next thing is, there is what's called a V board, and you remove it. Let's see if I can do that. Maybe a challenge to do it on camera. Okay, here we go. And that's what we're going to put over top of the worms, and that will allow a lot of air to circulate for the first 3 days. After 3 days, we're going to put that V-board back into the lid and cover with the tray. So in the next 3 to 4 days, what will I do? Let the worms continue to settle down. During this time, microorganisms will start to populate inside the bedding, which will help to start the composting process, as well as provide nutrients to help your worms digest the food. During this time, we don't feed the worms. So in 3 to 4 days after we start up, I'm going to check my worms in the food. When about half of the food is gone, I will give them more food, cover it with bedding, etc. So, against my better judgment, guys, I wanted my worm farm so bad. I'm not putting this outside because we are forecast to have some 20-degree weather, and I certainly don't want to kill my worms now that I have them. So I am going to put them in my garage because my garage is insulated, not heated or cooled, and I think they'll be pretty happy there. I don't want to take a chance on them getting too cold and dying. Once it's safe to go outside, this unit has these little legs that go underneath all four corners. You fill it with water, and that keeps ants and pests out of your worm farm. So how cool is this, guys? I just think, even though it's a mess in here, I got a little bit of dirt on the floor. I just really think, you know, doing things naturally, being creative, the worms will reproduce. I won't have to keep buying worms. I'm going to have lots of compost. It will help me compost my waste. Some of it will go into my compost bin, but at least they will have a big part in it, and I can use that compost to help myself grow more food. So stay tuned for some final thoughts. It's another gorgeous day in Ohio. It's actually the next day. And I realized I made a little boo-boo and put myself on fast speed when I was trying to do my outro. So this is good because it gives me an opportunity to tell y'all a couple things. First of all, my shirt says, "Just a girl eating a salad wishing it was a pizza." I thought that was appropriate. But my worms settled in nicely. One of the things that you should do if your worms are trying to escape, because they're stressed after being, you know, shipped and in the FedEx truck and all that, put a light on them for 24 hours. They don't like light, so they will burrow down. Mine have settled in. I'm super, super, super excited. And then Sunday, day after tomorrow, I will be checking how much food they've eaten and then adding food. And y'all, just excuse my hair. So what am I doing today? Y'all, I'm working in my garden beds. I'm doing a lot of weeding and turning the beds over. I have not amended the soil. We're supposed to get weather in the 20s, I think first of next week. So, you know, way too early to plant. But I do have a lot of winter garlic, so I'm just weeding around that. I'm going to try to get this done today. My hands don't look real girly. Got all the dirt, guys. Do I have gloves? Oh, yeah. And I just washed them. I never used them. So I hope you've enjoyed this little informational video on worm farming. I thought it was just a fascinating way, you know, to use nature to help you grow better. So I hope you will consider giving it a try. Drop me a comment below. What do you think of worm farming? Do you think it's something that you might want to do, or does it skeeve you out? It doesn't me. I don't get heebie-jeebies on stuff like that. Snakes I'm not real fond of, but I'm still not freaked out about them. I found a dead snake in my bed there, so, but he was gone, so I didn't have to chop him up or anything or relocate him. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for your time. Don't forget to smash that like button and leave me a comment. I love hearing from you. And as always, be healthy, be well, be blessed. And I will see you all very soon. Take care.